Hi, and welcome back to Rose Connections. I'm Janet Rose. I've been a social justice attorney. I've been a lobbyist. I've been a mediator. I've been a contract administrator. I also taught reading for a little bit. Every week I've got something new that I want to highlight. The whole point of today's video is radiant resilience. I often say I'm here to help the helpers. I'm here to help the helpers, those who have lived experience navigating difficult, horrendous systems, who have that heart-centered leadership, pulse that is dying to grow and move forward and help all of us rise up together. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for them. I'm here for you. I am here for those who want to create a more trauma-informed world on some level. I am, of course, in Colorado. So it would be impossible for me to talk about building a more trauma-informed world without also talking about Boulder and the shooting that happened in Boulder this week. We had another shooting this week in Atlanta. We've had shootings all across the nation on small scales, on large scales. And the first time that I recorded this, I ended up going on this rant about gun control. And that's not my focus here. I'm not here necessarily to advocate a specific viewpoint, but to help us shift our perspective and be more honest with ourselves. And originally this week, I really wanted to talk about how ruling from a place of fear or leading from a place of fear, leading with fear, inspiring fear with intimidation techniques, how that's going to get you the opposite of the outcomes that you're actually looking for. I was going to talk about how shame is not a great motivator. And yet, right now, we should feel ashamed that we collectively have not yet done anything to prevent this kind of trauma from happening. And so that's what today is about. It's not about gun control, because we can talk about that, but I'm not prepared to talk about that today. Instead, this is just coming from the heart. This is coming from a place of leading with vulnerability, making sure that our hearts are leading the way, that we recognize the strength inherent in that vulnerability, the lessons learned, the ways in which we've recovered, the ways in which we have become resilient. The problem is that resilience is not resilience if what we're doing is just patching it over and over and over again and pretending that there's not a problem. The answer is so complex to this, which is why it's not just simply about gun control. It's also about recognizing the inherent vulnerabilities within us all. It's recognizing that these traumas are preventable for the most part. That they're not simply a matter of mental health issues. That they're a deep-seated misogyny, deep-seated racism, deep-seated superiority that is at fault here. We do that when we attach our ego to a solution and then manufacture a problem so that we can just impose that solution on everyone so that we can be the winners of the game. We solve the problem this much, ignoring the bigger issues and the deeper problems. And if we want to create a more trauma-informed world, we have to recognize the trauma that we continue inflicting on ourselves, on each other. Preventable traumas that force people into grieving someone who didn't have to die. It's not like they were sick for a long time and doctors have tried everything that they could. No. Someone decided to make that choice for them. Someone decided to impose their will on everyone else. On strangers that they don't even know. And yet, that tendency, that willingness to impose your will on someone else, that's a very human problem. And that's not a problem that we can easily legislate away. And trust me, I have been thinking through different ways that we could do this. And the problem always comes down to, if we try to legislate away that ego need, that ego fear of not being superior, we still are embedding it within our systems. We're still encouraging it in our media. We're still applauding it at Trump rallies. Superiority, separation. The problem has been and always will be the fact that we don't see that we are connected. We don't see that we are all stewards of the same planet. And we all want to go in these different directions. Because we're afraid that if our idea isn't the one that is chosen, if we can't assert ourselves and stand our ground, then someone will come and take it away from us. I mean, that's really at the heart of that gun control debate, right? We're afraid someone is going to come and take that freedom away from us. And yet, the lone wolf gunman feel free to take that freedom away from everybody else. And that is really the problem, is we enable people to make life choices for everyone else because of how they feel that day, how they perceive the world, how they ignore their own trauma. They get to take everyone else's freedom away. Because in taking that freedom away, they're not even just taking just that life. The people who have survived these shootings have a long road of healing ahead of them. They might feel guilty for surviving. They might be plagued with nightmares of this incident. That person made that choice to impose that experience on others. And this is preventable. There's a lot in the spirituality community, and I want to bring this up because I'm sure someone will comment about this. But in the spirituality community, there's this whole idea of you choose your own experience. If you've experienced trauma, that's because your soul chose it. Your soul chooses a way through things, definitely. But no one chooses to be victimized by a gunman while shopping for eggs. No one chooses to be sexually assaulted. Trust me on that one. No one chooses to be born to neglectful parents. No one chooses to live their childhood in poverty. These are decisions that we as society have made for other people because we do not recognize at a very core level the interconnectedness that we all share. What happens to you is felt by me. If you've had a bad day and we encounter each other, I'm going to feel that on some level or another. You might snap at me. You might be crying when I see you. We all impact each other. The resonance that we bring into everyone else's field is our choice. But when that choice is taken away from us, which is essentially what trauma is that feeling that you didn't get to choose this horrible, horrific event. You didn't get to choose this car accident. Even if your choices were the proximate cause of that accident, you did not choose to experience things this way. All we have a control over is how we recover. But we as a society, we do have a choice in how we keep people safe, in prioritizing psychological safety, recognizing that it's not fair to an entire generation of kids for the last 20 years to have to do active shooter drills, to have to live with that paranoia and that fear and that distrust of their own safety. Do you know what happens to a kid's system when they have that kind of toxic stress? Look up adverse childhood experiences. There's actually a really great video under my trauma-informed care basics playlist about that. But understand that we as a society, when we choose not to act, when our resilience looks more like deflection, that we're making choices for other people, that we're saying, yeah, it's okay for you to go through all that trauma. I'm fine with that. You wouldn't feel that way if you were the one in that King Soopers, if you were the one being hunted down by someone so ashamed of their sexuality that they have to murder others. We are allowing these choices to be made through our inaction. We say hearts and prayers, and in fact, I'm actually a little bit shocked that we're not doing more discussion right now about Boulder. We are, but we're not doing it to the level I think we did after Columbine, after the first one of these. I won't even say first, because that wasn't the first school shooting, and yet it's just one of many that my state has had to endure. All of us have some sort of personal connection to at least one of these shootings on some level or another. The school in Highlands Ranch, the kid who died, Kendrick, he lived in my neighborhood. That affects me. The Columbine Commission, that was actually one of my first assignments when I was an intern at the Attorney General's office. Imagine having to pick your way through these heady issues so often, of knowing people who died all the time. And yet, that is what we have done with the pandemic. That is what we have done with school shootings. We have signaled, as a nation, our willingness for people to die preventable deaths. Don't even get me started on chronically ill and how we treat our disability community as completely disposable. Don't even get me started about homelessness and how we treat them as disposable. Instead, start asking yourself how we can start pulling away at these threads of superiority in our everyday lives, in our leadership lives. Like I said, I think the original topic that I was going to have was about not ruling out of fear. And I'll still talk about that probably on the next one of these. But it would be irresponsible for me to not talk about Boulder, to not talk about the pain and the hurt and the trauma that was entirely preventable had we just been paying attention. And had we held our lawmakers accountable and ourselves accountable to never let a tragedy like this happen again. And yet, we reset the clock, and the next shooting will come too soon. So today, your radiant resilience requires you to examine where you impose these egocentric superiority complexes in our lives, where we enable them. Maybe we don't have that, but maybe we're enabling that by not standing up to our bosses who do that. Maybe we're enabling that by letting the people around us get away with hurting others. And just, oh, boys will be boys. Or they're always just so sensitive. Where are we excusing violence? And at that, where are we excusing superiority? That's all I have for today. Look forward to May 12th. I am going to be doing a Trauma-Informed Care 101 class. The cost is just going to be $10. So I'm going to be offering that online over Zoom. I will put out an Eventbrite announcement next week about that. So stay tuned. I will be putting that link in the video notes, but it will also be available on my website as well as all of my social media pages. So look forward to that. That's going to be a 90-minute class for $10. Big steal. So basically, layperson's guide to trauma-informed care and creating a more trauma-informed society in general. And I think after this week, that's exactly what we need. So thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate you tuning in and sharing these videos. Please share your thoughts with me. And keep leading from the heart. Keep shining. Take care.